Hello and welcome to our webinar today. Just a couple of notes before we start. Firstly, all our attendees are muted and the webinar will actually be recorded and available on rebroadcast as of Monday. Please feel free to use the chat facility at the bottom right of your screen if you've got any questions or thoughts you want to share during the webinar. And lastly, we will actually be being social throughout, so please do tweet at #channelchoices. That's #channelchoices. And with that, I'll pass straight over to Jim, who's going to moderate the webinar this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're living currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And Karen, can you hear me okay? Is audio okay?
Audio is perfect, Jim.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank all of you for joining us today. As you can see, hopefully, here on the screen, 5 metrics to measure the health of your partner program performance. So we are here today to talk about the power of business intelligence and metrics to analyze the performance of your channel program. So what we're going to do after a few introductions here is jump into a little bit of a brief overview on the state of channel BI today. And then we're going to share with you 5 metrics, which we refer to as the unconventional metrics of tracking the performance of your partner program. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, please, by all means, feel free to chat those, put those in the chat window, and we'll get to them as quickly as we possibly can. And also, as you look at the bottom of this page here, you can see the hashtag channel choices. We'll be tweeting during this. So by all means, please join the conversation and tweet whatever you see appropriate there that we're sending out. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce a couple co-presenters that we have with us today. As you can see here, I'll be moderating. Jim Summers, I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Relayware, and I'm also joined by 2 colleagues of mine who are calling in from California, our California office. First, Tim Harmon. Tim, are you there?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm the VP of Customer Success for Relayware, and pleased to be chatting with you guys today.
Well, thanks for joining us. And again, we have also Chris Buchholz, who is our Director of Content. And Chris, are you there?
I sure am. Thanks for having me. And Jim and Tim, thanks for your help with this presentation. And if you look at the next slide here, I can tell you a little additional information you can have is this white paper that I wrote that we sort of use this as a springboard to the webinar, but it's well worth downloading and taking a look at. And as I keep saying to people, we always say we're in an era of big data, and the reality is what goes along with that is an era of big analysis. And part of big analysis in my mind is knowing what to look for and being creative about what to look for. And it's kind of what the theme of the webinar is today.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Chris. And as you can see at the bottom of the page here, to Chris's point, you can go to that URL and download the white paper, which is a great companion piece to what we're going to talk about today. And as you can see from some of the bullet points here, we're going to be talking about, looking at things like your content, your training, the lead or the sales process overall, and looking at those metrics, but not just those metrics, but some of the things in between those, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So rather than looking at more of the obvious metrics, looking at some of the other ones, more of the hidden gems there that can kind of give you more insight into the success of your program. So with that, we're going to kick off here with Tim sharing with us a little bit of background on channel business intelligence and your role at Forrester, Tim. In your previous life, I know you spent a lot of time talking about and advising clients about business intelligence. And before I hand it over to you, there's a gentleman here you can see in the picture who is sometimes and frequently known as saying this. I'm probably paraphrasing it, but you cannot measure it. If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. And I'm wondering if anybody knows who this is, and if you do know who it is, please email to us. The first person that actually emails us, we're going to have a nice parting gift at the end here, a nice piece of Relayware apparel. So if you know who said this, by all means, let us know. And he goes on to say that basically, when you cannot measure it, when you cannot express information in numbers, your knowledge is meager and unsatisfactory. And he said this back in 1883, and he's famous for a lot of things beyond, of course, just this one quote. But Tim, let me hand it over to you here and give us a little bit of the background on channel business intelligence and what the state of that today is. Could you kick things off for us?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. So, you know, I think at the top it mentioned that I previously worked for Forrester as the lead analyst on channels for Forrester for the 6 years prior to my joining Relayware. I was also an analyst back in the 90s for Metagroup, where I headed up the business intelligence research. And I don't know if many of you are going to remember, kind of the birth of business intelligence, really as a term, was 1993 when Ed Codd wrote a white paper on OLAP, online analytical processing, that appeared in Computer World, again, back in 1993. And it's really when it took off. And, you know, it was not just Metagroup, but it was Howard Dresner of Gartner that was led the charge in business intelligence, and, of course, vendors like Cognos, now acquired by IBM, Business Objects, now having been acquired by SAP, but other vendors as well in business intelligence, MicroStrategy. Microsoft got into the business intelligence market a good number of years ago. So it was an application area that became of critical importance back then, but it's even continued in its importance up until, you know, today. And every year when CIOs are, you know, surveyed by the analyst firms or by the big tech vendors, business intelligence is always in the top 5 of their initiatives. I don't think there's too much information that a company can get about its suppliers and its customers. And I point this out specifically because that has been the traditional approach to BI, right? In the 1990s, it was probably mostly about suppliers. If you remember, the 1990s was really about supply chain optimization, if you could characterize that decade. The following decade, you know, the early 2000s, really about customer analytics, right? And so I'm going to propose that something is missing, you know, from that equation, and that is all the data and business intelligence and analytics that you could potentially affect about your channel. So go to the next slide, Jim. Yeah, so channel BI has a couple of different dimensions to it. I'm going to talk about those dimensions, but you know why it's critically important is that the BI lens, when expanded to include your channel partners, also by nature expands the lens that you have of your customers, right? Because a lot of your customers are actually shared customers between you and your channel partners. And so you have, you know, great benefit of really expanding your BI lens and your BI focus to include your channel. Moreover, I would say a common issue or a common complaint that I heard from channel professionals during my 6 years at Forrester was that they weren't able to measure return on channel investment, you know, for their management. So every year when budget time came around, they couldn't really point to how investing in various different programs, channel programs, resulted in increased revenue or increased profitability. And Jen and Chris and I are going to show you some examples of how you can apply business intelligence to your channel to actually get that return on channel investment. Next slide. So I mentioned a couple dimensions. Here's the first one that I want to talk about, just business intelligence about your partners, right? What are they doing? How engaged are they with you? How loyal are they to you, right? And so there's a lot of different things that you can measure and monitor with a business intelligence capability of your partners that you should, right? So you should be monitoring, you know, what they're doing in terms of training and certification, what they're doing in terms of marketing, how much MDF are they taking advantage of, market development funds are they actually spending, and what are they spending those market development funds on, right? Partner events, are they actually attending your partner events, your annual conferences and your regional events? Are they really invested and engaged with you? And so there's a lot of data in a proper partnering automation system that you should be leveraging using BI to better understand what your partners are doing and how committed and invested they are in you going forward. Next slide. The other dimension is, is the look through the partners to the customers. And sometimes you hear about sell-to data and sell-through data, right? Selling to is data about products that you actually sell to your partners. Sell-through data is data about what your partners are selling to customers. So there's a BI analog to this, right? And the BI analog are the two dimensions that I'm talking about here. This one represents the sell-through or the lens through the partners to your customers, your BI lens through your partners to your customers. Really, in effect, giving you a 360-degree view of your customers, right? Because some of that interaction, at least between customers and suppliers, is not between the customer and supplier directly, but between the customer and the supplier's business partners or channel partners. Right? And so that's where you can take advantage, again, of a proper partnering automation database architecture to be able to capture information about your partner's performance with respect to customers, right? Customer opportunities, how many leads are they generating? Are they turning leads into deals? What is the effectiveness rate of them doing that? How many orders are they getting on an annual, quarterly, or monthly basis, and how is that tracking and trending? What sort of deals are they actually registering? And support tickets, right? Again, channel partners are more than just your sales partners. They are, what I've oftentimes said, they're your marketing, sales, delivery, and support partners, right? So you've got to think about the entire spectrum of customer interaction that a partner has with a customer, and it certainly is going to include after sales or after implementation interaction in the form of support. And you can, again, with the proper partnering automation system, being able to distribute those support tickets between partners and yourselves in terms of sharing the support load, the same way that you share marketing and sales activities between your partners. You can also share your support activities as well and measure that. Next slide. So again, I'm going to harken back to my years as an analyst, and I would say that the majority of ICT vendors, information and communications technology vendors, and other types of manufacturers that I worked with as well, pharmaceuticals and specialty chemical companies and other sorts of industries that are very channel-oriented, really built their partnering systems, their channel systems, a piece at a time over a course of a number of years, right? And this is, I just used this slide as an example of the years of how something might have come to be, right? So as an example, 1991, a company might have built an order management system so that partners could actually log into a partner portal and order products that they need to fulfill a deal. 2003, maybe they added a proper partner portal, right? 2004, a learning management system to support the training and certification needs that they need. And on, right? MDF and incentives added later, opportunity management, and then partner community. And if those investments were made right, then companies should be able to do business intelligence for those particular functions, right? So, for example, if they invested in a proper learning management system and architecture, they should be able to track training investment by their channel partners on a quarter-by-quarter basis. And moreover, not just training investment, but training effectiveness. How many times is it taking sales engineers to take an exam before they actually pass enough exams to get certified? So they can measure over time the effectiveness of their training programs and how those training programs are turning into certification investment. Same thing with any of these silos, if you will, again, they should have a proper BI capability where you can measure what's going on inside that silo. But I'm going to challenge you guys to think a little broader, right? Because it's not just important to measure how partner activities are going with respect to any one of these functions or silos, if you will. It's also very important to know how activity in one application is impacting results in another application. And again, Chris and I are going to talk about this now. We're going to give you an example of some 5 health metrics that you can employ, begin to employ to start thinking about how you can take advantage of a proper business intelligence capability that spans all of your functions and all of your applications of your channel management system.
Yeah, so just to jump in there for a second, Tim, great stuff. As you can see on the slide here, just to build on your statement there, I think just to paraphrase, you're saying it's not necessarily just measuring the particular metrics around each of those silos, but those correlations, right, that occur between each of those, which we're about to jump into, and having a system that has sort of a super view of how all these things interact with each other and managing all the things like you have listed here, order management, partner portal, learning management, and kind of doing the double click on the correlation between those is really where the magic is, correct?
It's certainly, I think, where the budget magic is, right, Jim, because you can measure training investment by your partners and how that's trending. Unless you understand how training investment is translating into, opportunities and revenue and your partner's profitability, it's going to be hard come every October, going to the CFO and eliciting funds for the following year. On the other hand, if you do like you just described, it's going to be really easy to actually get those increase in investments that you need to keep growing your partner channel and to become the dominant player in your sector with respect to channel strength.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's go to the first correlation here between some of these metrics and look at content to leads. So what's this all about here?
Yeah, so this is our first example, right? So being able to correlate downloads of marketing materials. So now we're talking about how partners are going to your partner portal and how they're using the content that you're providing to them, right? Not just how often they're downloading it, but what those downloads or consumption of your marketing materials and how that correlates to the leads and opportunities that are being registered by the partner. Here's the question. The more engaged a partner is with respect to your content, the more content that they're downloading and consuming, shouldn't they be more successful or more active in terms of registering leads and opportunities? The obvious answer is yes. And you can go to your management and say, we believe this to be the case, but what you really need is a business intelligence capability that can prove that to be the case. And more importantly, to be able to prove it by how wide of a margin, right? You should be able to produce a graph that shows on an exponential curve basis that the more they're engaged in terms of content consumption, the number of leads and deals is going up exponentially, right? That a proper BI capability would show.
So,
Next slide.
Looking each of those, right, these are some of the things that you can look at when you're looking at the effectiveness of your content, correct?
Yeah, and I'll let you and Chris speak to this a little bit further.
Yeah, Chris, why don't you walk us through some of these?
Sure. Well, these are some ideas around what to look for in terms of content. And the first one, I'll just go through these and explain what these mean, because these are pretty simplified explanations of what we're looking at here. But the first one is content downloads. Everyone understands that. That's kind of the bulk number, the most generic way to look at how many people are looking at or downloading your content. Views and downloads, I think that's somewhat related in terms of which content is being looked at the most versus which content's being looked at by the most, or which content's being looked at by people the most. In other words, which partners are looking at a lot of content. And then from there you start to get, I think, pretty interesting stuff. The next one, format, it's really important to understand what medium your partners are looking at your content on or downloading your content to. If you're sort of caught up in a very traditional outlook on things that says your partners only use their PCs, well, that might be overlooking a big swath of the market and a big swath of opportunity for you to reach people who are more in tune with new formats. And if you can detect that, you can sort of tweak your content a little bit to make sure you're hitting all the right marks as far as the way your partners want to consume content and use content. Geographical differences. This one seems a little bit strange on its face, but the reality is here you've got partners in different parts of the world, and what they download may differ from what people download in North America. Europe may have a different set of content needs than people in Asia. You've got to be able to understand that, and you can do that through understanding who your partners are at the very beginning of the analysis process. In other words, if you've got profiles of your partners that say this partner works in this market in this geographical region, you can get very granular with your analysis of how effective your content is. And also patterns of downloading, and this is perhaps one of my favorites, because you've got different types of content on the site, different pieces that apply to different aspects of the selling process, different aspects of the marketing process. Which of these pieces of content are being downloaded in conjunction with one another? Because that'll give you an idea of what the ideal mix of content is. There's two great things about that. One, it lets you replicate that sort of track again, as long as you understand the context in which that content was downloaded and also presented to the partners via your marketing efforts internally. And it gives you an idea of what your partner's journey through your portal looks like. So you can do some reverse diagnostics on the portal. If there's a piece of content that you think is just a great match with something else that you've got up there, and that other thing is being downloaded like crazy, but the thing you think is a perfect match sits there and nobody sees it, well, it's time to look at the portal and see if there's an issue with navigation, an issue with the way you're publicizing or promoting things to your partners, and maybe an issue with the profiling you're using to get content to your partners via the portal.
So the idea here is that if you see patterns emerging, right, where you're seeing a particular maybe training video that's being viewed multiple times at a certain, from desktops, from the office at a certain time of day, you can then start to modify the way your content is being developed and curated, right, and presented to your partners to optimize on certain trends that are emerging.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jim. There's, the first rule in content is knowing your customer or knowing your audience. In this case, this helps you understand your audience better. But more than that, it also helps you understand your audience in terms of what they need to go out and be productive for you. And so it's really critical to not just throw the stuff up on your portal and hope for the best. It's not an if you build it, they will come kind of thing. It's if you build it, they will come if you keep seeing what they come and use of what you built. So that's it's not a billboard. It's a much more dynamic environment. And once you've started doing these correlations, you can see some things here that play out that give you some diagnostics and some direction for what to change and what to improve on in the future. So let's say these are the two non-optimal scenarios. The optimal scenario is you have two bar graphs like in those graphics that mirror each other. The more downloads you have, the more sales that your partners are making. That's great. That indicates you've got a healthy content situation going. If they look like this, you've got some tweaking to do. On the left, you see sales going up while downloads are being flat or going down. That indicates there's a disconnect between the effectiveness of that content or the use of that content and the ability of your partners to sell. So there's some situations here you've got to examine. First of all, the one I suggested earlier about your portal being difficult to navigate, or your portal not serving up the right content to the right partners. Check that. One of the great killers of content is the fact that we put it up and we expect it to have an indefinite lifespan. That doesn't work. If the content isn't fresh and relevant, your partners are going to keep selling because that's what they do. They're just not going to use the stuff you're giving to them to sell with. And also, is the portal causing them a difficulty in doing their job? In other words, does it take too many steps to get from the starting point to the finishing point for them to get the content they need? The other scenario, sales is going down, really bad situation, but your portal is being used more and more for content downloads. Now, that's another very significant metric, a significant delta between what you want to see happening with content. The question there is, are you giving your partners the right content? If they're downloading things, they obviously are looking for help, but sales are not following the pattern of downloads, so there may be something wrong with that content. Are they just not getting the sales tools they need to win? We've talked about this in the past, the idea that a lot of companies throw up a lot of great marketing stuff on their portal and publicize it, make sure partners know about it, but the other sales tools just aren't there. So you may not be providing the complete mix of what they need. And there may be other issues in other areas of partner enablement. Training and certification are great obvious ones. If you're not giving them the tools to go out and understand what your products are, they're not going to sell for you. They may go to the website and download everything that they can find, just in a desperate attempt to reach what they need to sell better, and it doesn't work. Go back and examine the quality of the content and the pathways to get to that content.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Let's go into the second one here and look at training and the correlation between training to profitability. Tim, are you there? Can you walk us through this one?
Sure. My second favorite example of correlated BI for channel management. Before I talk about this, though, I wanted to add on to what you and Chris talked about content. Just a quick story. One of my clients in past years, actually several of my clients, asked me how often content should be refreshed on a partner portal. Now, the right answer is it depends, and a proper business intelligence capability should be able to give you that information, that once you put content up, you can actually measure how much it's consumed on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis, and you can actually see where the fall-off points. But lots of different projects that I've been engaged in over the years, the general indicator is about once every 2 weeks, Again, some needs to be refreshed more often than that, some not as often as that, but that's kind of a general rule of thumb. Okay. My number 2 correlation examples, the ability to correlate, your partner's engagement in terms of how much they're investing in training and certification to their own profitability, right? And so here the arrows are pointing from learning management to the partner portal. What is being assumed here is that the partner portal also has a partner account database underlying that partner portal, right, where you actually are able to track, your partner's profitability. So again, the correlation is obvious. It should be true that partners that invest more in training and certification are more profitable. And you can go to management and say, we believe this to be true, but you'll have a much more powerful story if you go to management with a BI capability and the reports and dashboards to actually show by how much it's true and by how much an increase in investment now by your partners in training, because it's partners that invest in training, leads to more profit for them. Next slide.
Yeah, here you see, this is our take on what you should see when you do this kind of analysis, when you do this kind of examination of the training metrics. So if again, as with content, if you've done this analysis, you should see a situation where what is somewhat expected happens. So people who are engaging a lot in training are also doing better in terms of their performance around profitability. People who invest less of their time in training don't do as well. So you should see a delta between those two groups. Sort of the classic, high performers, laggards. You see some market research firms use. You should be able to see that delta in profit between the people who are high consumers of training and the ones who are low consumers of training. When you do that, it's really useful because you can take it to those partners who are not performing and say, hey, listen, we've done this analysis and said it's very clearly shown that the people who really are engaged with training, this percentage of our partner base is making this much more than the rest of the folks who aren't engaging. So you can use it as a promotion tool for your own training efforts. Very, very effective. And again, like Tim said, you're not walking into a room with a feeling or an assumption. You're walking into a room with hard data that shows dollars and cents return on investment for engaging in training. If you don't have that delta between the people who are engaging in training and the people who are lagging behind, you have some issues. And let's look at the next slide, because that tells you what those issues may be. Oops. Well, maybe I was wrong about that. Let's talk about what that might be. So again, people are engaging in training very strenuously, and they're not selling. Big problem. It indicates that your training materials are perhaps not doing the job. The converse is also a bad thing. If people are sort of skating through the training, they're not really engaging in it very heavily. They're not going after certifications. They're not keeping up to date with things, and they're still selling. Well, that means that you have a ways to go. They could be selling better if your training was really keeping them engaged, and if they were going to that well more often for more information, more knowledge. The delta should be there. There should be a correlation between engagement and success. So that's the training aspect of it. It's very similar to content in a lot of ways, but there's a participation element here with your partners that's very important, and it's important to be able to take that to them with some numbers when the time comes.
Great, thanks, Chris. Let's go to number 3, Tim.
All right, my third example of BI correlation for channel management. So this is about certification to close time. All right, so last one was about really training to partners' profitability. Now we're measuring the how many certifications or how high a level a certification that a partner may have with respect to how long it takes for them to actually close a deal. All right, so you see the correlation between your learning management system and your opportunity management system that supports your partners. Again, you should be able to measure what that increased investment by partners is in certification. They should be able to shorten the amount of time that it takes to close a deal, right? They are more competent, right? The more competent they are, the faster they're able to communicate the value to customers and get customers to signature on a new contract. So again, an obvious correlation, one that can be proven with a proper channel business intelligence capability. Chris, you want to talk about some more examples in detail with respect to this?
Absolutely. The classic metric right now in all sales is time from the generation of a lead to its close, and then the percentage of close, the close rate percentage based on time. There's crazy figures out there about web generated leads. If you contact them within an hour, the close rate is like 200% greater than if you wait, which is great in a direct sales environment. We're not in a direct sales environment though. We're in a partner environment, so it's a little bit more complex, and the time issue becomes even more important because there's more than one organization involved here. So what the first thing you should do here is take a look at the baseline about how long it takes for you to generate a lead, get it to the partner, and get it acted upon. Really important to understand what is going on right now, because then you can't measure your improvements against anything. Understand where the speed bumps take place. In other words, if you can break that timeline into segments and say it takes this long for us to go from generation to handoff, it takes this long to go from the handoff to it being acted upon by partners, you can spot the places where the process slows down. You may have an internal process that is extremely fleet and agile and quick and goes from generation to handoff, but if you get it to the partners and you have partners who just don't jump on them, who let them sit on their desk for a while, well, it doesn't matter how fast you are. Look at how you can create a more frictionless sales process. You see the things there. There are things we've mentioned before and we'll mention further down the line in this webinar. Just making yourself an easier partner to do business with. In other words, don't create excuses for your leads to go stale as people scramble to try to fill in the blanks that you should be filling in for them. And also, are your partner processes and systems too stovepiped in order to understand how all these things interact, all these different processes interact? It's very easy to put point solutions in place to solve specific problems that are afflicting you right now. The problem is what ends up happening is you have solutions for individual problems, but the greater problem of all these different systems interacting with each other and all the different handoffs that have to take place is never addressed. So without a partnering automation application in place, it becomes really hard to understand the timeline. It becomes hard to understand the speed bumps, and it becomes very difficult to take action on that to smooth them out and make this process as quick and as rapid as possible. And I know there are some organizations out there who have put programs in place to monitor the speed of their partners' reaction to getting leads. And it's kind of an important thing for these companies that I've talked to because they have lots of partners. They don't want leads sitting around. They've got to get them to the people who are going to act on them quickly, which is what you all should be doing. But in order to do that, in order to monitor those leads, in order to be able to have a system in place where they can actually take action on leads that don't get acted on, they have to have a system like this that helps them understand what's going on with those leads even after they've done the handoff.
Okay, great. Let's go to number 4 then and look at the incentives in the MDF and what their impact is on the opportunities and looking at that correlation. So Tim, why don't you walk us through this?
Yeah, so my 4th example, and if you're not getting the flavor by now, you should be getting the flavor that we're not just suggesting measuring opportunity management in terms of revenue or profit or leads generation or deals registered, things like that, but what are the contributors, what are the influencers to those results? So here we've got a result, right, in terms of partner performance, right, deals registered, and we're measuring one of the contributors, one of the very major contributors, or should be a major contributor to the number of deals registered, and that's marketing activity, right? So you would assume, again, that the more marketing activity, the more that a partner is invested in your market development funds, the more deals are going to register. And again, with Relayware, you can, do these sorts of correlations, where it becomes obvious that proves the value of your MDF or co-op program in terms of the resultant opportunity management capabilities or opportunity management results that your partners are achieving by utilizing that investment in market development funds.
And here's how that ends up looking when you take a look at the numbers and try to determine what might be going on. So obviously, if your partners are receiving MDF, it should be reflected in sales activities and in eventually their bottom lines. And deal registration is a great intermediate step for that. It gives you an idea of effect of the MDF investment before there are closed deals. It's a good way to take a peek at what's going on. But you can also have a situation where deal registration activity is high. Your partners are getting those registrations into your portal, but at the same time, they're not applying for MDF. Now, this is the classic one because so many vendor companies have such a hard time assigning MDF funds. In a lot of cases, they just don't know exactly where to spend it effectively. They get behind the 8 ball. They want to preserve that budget. It ends up being 2 months into the quarter. They've got a pile of money laying around. So they just sort of forward it their partners. The partners got to have a month to use it effectively. They never do, and it's reflecting badly on them. In fact, I think there was a Gartner report that said that this is one of the, or an IDC report that said this is one of the biggest pet peeves of partners is these MDF funds that show up with unrealistic expectations late in the quarter. So if you've got high MDF or low MDF application rates and high deal registration activity, your partners are selling without your incentives, and it's time to start tuning up the way you examine your partners for allocation of MDF funds. Now, if the applications are high, but your sales don't correspond, well, you've got to examine how you're allocating funds. One of the big pitfalls of offering monetary incentives is that your partners start to look at them almost as a subsidy, and they don't use them as an incentive to do things for the longer term, and what happens is you've got the applications for the money because they expect the money, but they're not putting the effort in to capitalize on that MDF investment to result in sales for both you and for them. So again, a great opportunity to examine how you're allocating funds, to assess how you're picking folks for MDF and how you're evaluating their MDF applications. So there's also incentives that are aimed at individuals. And again, like I said a second ago, your goal for incentives should not be to get them to do something really great this quarter. Your goal should be for them to pick up on behaviors that are profitable for both them and for you especially, but also that they continue those behaviors because they see the value in it for them. They engage in those behaviors because they have been incented initially, and they just keep doing them because they're useful and beneficial to them. They result in higher revenues for them. So if you're going to do that kind of thing, if you're going to hope for people to keep those behaviors going, what you're going to have to do is look for before and after trends. You can't really assess how well those incentives do unless you understand, first of all, how well people were doing before with a certain behavior and whether or not they continue that behavior afterwards. So what you want to do is look for spikes that correlate to incentives. Those are big red flags. That says that somebody in your partner program saw, or a number of people in your partner program saw the incentives, thought they were lucrative, thought they were really great opportunities to make a little extra cash from you as a vendor. For the duration of the incentive, they acted the way you wanted them to act, but once that incentive went away, they reverted back to their old ways. It indicates your incentive wasn't very effective, and it also indicates you should probably do some engagement with those partners to fully educate them about the ideas that you were hoping to incent them around in the first place.
All right, let's go to the last one here. Tim, your fifth one is engagement to deals.
Yeah, so we promised you 5 examples of metrics, specifically correlation metrics that you can use to measure the health of your channel partner program. So here's number 5. Here where you can correlate how your partners are taking advantage in, your social activities, right, in campaigns, in terms of social media, discussion forums, event participation, and is that having any contributing value to the number of leads generated and deals closed? Again, something that should happen, and I've been involved in many projects over the years where I've actually measured this. It's interesting because the boost in social activity, in social capability, just over the past few years has really started to catch on, at least with some ICT vendors, partners. Not all, because I don't think it's properly positioned and marketed. But with those companies that do, they're actually seeing a big boost in how partners are engaging in terms of their social capabilities that they provide them, and those same partners that are being most productive, again, on the opportunity management front. Next slide. So I want to talk, more about social because it's got an important implication. You can have, an online community and discussion forums for your partners, and it's important, I think, that you do. But we all know there's online communities outside of your own partner portal that your partners are probably going to engage in, right? Whether it be, blogs or discussion forums on CRN or CompTIA or any of the other, various third-party, or independent channel partner discussion forums. Those partners are having conversations every day with each other about customers and about their suppliers or vendors. Moreover, and every bit as important, if not more important, your customers are having conversations every day on various social media about your partners, right? So there's a tremendous amount of sentiment information that you can gather through various, social monitoring mechanisms that could really prove to be of great value to you, engaging what your partners are doing and how they're doing it. All right. So go to the next slide. You know, what this implies is big data, right? Because when you start to merge all of that World Wide Web social data about what partners are saying about other partners and what they're saying about you, along with what customers are saying about your partners, and now you also look at your own data that you have regarding your partner's engagement with you. And I've listed some of these here, right? How often are they utilizing your partner portal? How much content are they downloading and consuming? How many events are they attending, and how many people are they sending to those events? What is their investment in training and certification? How much market development funds are they actually utilizing? You know, what are their deals registered? How often are they transacting deals? You can actually combine all this data using Hadoop, and now you're going to get, you know, a big data opportunity, or as some people like to say, a big analysis opportunity. It is a big data issue because, again, if you have a significant number of partners and you combine all of this engagement activity data with all of that data that's available on the web with respect to their social sentiments, you're going to get some pretty good indicators of what your partner's loyalty is, because you're combining the hard data metrics that you're gathering in your own partnering automation system with the soft data that you're getting through social listening tools, you know, gathering sentiment about partners and customers about partners.
So thank you, Tim, and Chris also. You know, just to sort of wrap this up here in the next slide or two, when you look at these 5 metrics, it's important to look across various elements from your content and training enablement to your certifications and the MDF programs and engagement, and look at them all together and see not just what's happening at those particular metrics, but what the correlations are happening between those various measurements as well as the important thing. And frankly, one of the only ways you can really do that effectively is to have a holistic view in the technology that can let you draw those conclusions. So it's about monitoring and measuring and then analyzing the correlations here to see how effective you truly are in your channel program and if you are in fact getting a strong return on your channel investment. So with that, just to sort of wrap it up here, and by all means, I'll ask my co-presenters to jump in if you have any additional comments on this. But to summarize, you know, it's clear that we need to be, in partner and channel management, we need to be looking at the key metrics, and they need to be monitored very closely. But as Tim said up front, traditional BI approaches may not give you the complete picture of really how effective you are and how well your program is performing. And it's important to look beyond those obvious channel BI metrics to the ones that influence them, and doing the double click on those metrics to really dig into them to see what's happening there. And just to reiterate this last point here, partnering automation it can provide the full picture for you to analyze those correlations between and across the various functions within your program, whether it's marketing, sales, training, enablement, incentivization, what have you. So hopefully you found this helpful and informative today. We're going to open up to some questions. But just to wrap it up here on the, remember the guy who said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it? I'm not sure if we had any answers to that or if we're going to give out a prize to anybody here, but it was Lord Kelvin, father, I believe, of absolute zero, but a physicist from the 1800s who said that. So I'm not sure if we had anybody answer it correctly here, but if you did, we'll reach out to you and we'll send you some great Relayware attire for you. So with that, let's open it up and see if we have some questions. Karen, can I invite you back onto the line and help us with the Q&A session?
Indeed you can, Jim. We've got a few questions here and a little bit of time to cover some of them. So just looking through these, I'm going to push the first one to Chris. First question, if we're already using partner profiles for management of our portal content, is there value in applying those profiles to the study of these metrics?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I think Tim also would love to get a swing at this one, but I'll start because if you've already got profiles, you already understand who your customers are, you can then impart a degree of granularity to your study of these metrics that you couldn't impart otherwise. In other words, you're already assembling a sort of a matrix of data about usage, about correlation between usage and revenue across your entire partner community. If you could then apply use the profiles, you can sort of put the horizontal tier to the vertical tier, and suddenly you've got a much more deep way of looking at who's doing what's working for what kind of partners. By using that profile information to segment the partners, you can introduce a new level of granularity to it that's really, really helpful. It's sort of like saying, you know, if you see in the political polls where it says 58% of people think this, and then they break it down into age groups, or they break it down into professional groups, they break it down into geographies. Incredibly useful. Profiling can do the exact same sort of thing for you.
Yes, and I think agree, Chris. I think it's a great question, by the way. We've talked all along about, you know, measuring, you know, partners' performance according to some correlated, you know, partner investment. And you can look at that by individual partners, but it's going to be more valuable, I think, to look at it by various partner profiles, whether that be gold, silver, bronze, whether it be, you know, European, North America, Asia-Pac, Latin American partners, whether it be partners that have achieved a certain certification status. So again, when you start to apply these OLAP principles using your various partner segmentation profiles, then it becomes even more valuable.
Thanks for that, Tim. We have another one here that's specific to Relayware, actually, saying, can Relayware's data be amalgamated or indeed merged with CRM systems so that you can get a 360-degree view of customers?
Yeah, I'll take that, Karen. By the way, I wanted to say that, you know, Jim's trivia question, Lord Kelvin, I was highly disappointed because I emailed in that it was Henny Youngman, so I obviously don't get the prize. But yeah, Relayware does support that. We actually integrate, have integration with Salesforce.com and NetSuite CRM systems, and with we've also done integration with Microsoft Dynamics CRM as well, where we are syncing our data with that of the CRM system on a regular, near real-time basis, so that for the express purpose of what the questioner was looking for, that you can bring together the view of what your partners are doing with respect to your customers and what you're doing directly with your customers to create that 360-degree view. And you can either effect that view either in Relayware or in your CRM system, because it's a two-way sync.
Thanks for that, Tim. The next question is a lengthy one, but I think worthy of an answer. And actually, Chris, I'm going to push this one to you. What if we find that our lead handoffs are quick, but some of our partners have issues getting to work on them in a timely fashion? Goes on to say, metrics are great for fixing internal issues, but you do have a suggestion. But do you have a suggestion for using them to fix issues our partners have too?
Yeah, I sure do. Like I said, I've had experience seeing a company effectively use metrics, and especially the measurement of the speed of that handoff and the action on those leads in action. And this is actually a branch of an American company in the UK. So they had the advantage of not being as massive as the American branch of the company. They're able to do things on their own, and as a result, they developed this great program where they could do these measurements, and they could take the information they find from it to the partners who are underperforming. And they could put some rules in place for these underperformers and say, listen, we gave you 30 leads last month, and you acted on 6 of them. So there's 24 that you didn't touch at all. We're going to start putting some rules in place for you that could involve, if you not acting on these leads in a certain amount of time, we're going to pull them back and give them to another partner. And that kind of awareness on the part of the partner that the vendor understood what they were doing with the leads had a huge effect. It was sort of a psychological impact, the idea that they were not operating in the dark anymore. They weren't able to get away with sort of picking and choosing the leads because they were going to lose a bunch of leads in the future. Had a huge impact on them. And it also enabled the vendor to start maximizing the value of its marketing investment to generate those leads in the first place. So just understanding what was going on was very important. You've seen this in a lot of business stories where they talk about the battle between sales and marketing, where marketing develops leads and hands them to sales, and then sales complains that the leads aren't good, and then marketing complains that sales don't do their job. Well, what often happens is marketing does a good job getting the leads that are designed to fit a criteria, and then marketing doesn't, or sales doesn't act on it. Same thing happens in the channel environment where those leads are handed over, and the partner decides that they aren't worth the effort and don't act on them. Well, it was worth the effort to generate them in the first place by the vendor because they have an understanding of what they're trying to do. So having a visibility, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there are two capabilities in Relayware, I think, that support this as well. So the assumption is that you're using business intelligence, for your leads that you're allocating, and your BI tooling or dashboard is telling you that those leads are not being acted upon in a reasonable time. So one thing that you can employ in Relayware is our gamification, where you can allocate scores to partners, and they get a higher score for the shorter time they take to actually react to a lead, right? And so that score declines over time, and you can use those points for anything. You can use those as points towards gold. You can use those points as a special incentive. You can use those points as discounts for future training, but there's a full gamification capability in Relayware. The second thing that you have as a capability is to be able to automatically pull a lead back. So if you allocated a lead to a partner and after a certain number of days there's no action on it, the system can automatically pull that lead back and reallocate it to another partner.
Tim, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of these cases what we're talking about here is not just the mechanics of doing this kind of operation, but also using creativity to understand the best way to make sure the behaviors you want from the partners are occurring, and to make sure that happens in the way that's best for your partner community. In other words, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you for those answers. I think, Karen, any more questions?
No, we'll leave it there now, Jim. It's top of the hour.
Yes, it is. And we thank you all for staying with us on this call. Hopefully you found this, again, helpful and informative. And I'd like to thank my co-presenters, Tim Harmon and Chris Buchholz. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim.
And thank all of you for joining us. And please, by all means, keep an eye out for an email from us for a rebroadcast of this. If you'd like to listen to it again or share it with a family, friend, or loved one, by all means, please do so. And check back again. We'll have another webinar coming up within the next 2 weeks. And we'll talk to you then. And thank you all again for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.